The colony ship New Dawn drifted through the Outer Rim territories, a speck of human ambition in the vast darkness of space. Inside, 300 families slept in cryostasis, dreaming of the world they would build on Kepler 442b. Only the skeleton crew remained awake, monitoring systems and watching the stars. Captain Sarah Chin stood on the bridge, her coffee growing cold in her hands. She had been staring at the sensor readouts for the past hour, trying to convince herself that the anomaly was just a glitch. But the readings were unmistakable. 3 ships, massive beyond anything humanity had ever constructed, were approaching on an intercept course. "Captain," Lieutenant Morrison said, his voice tight with controlled fear. "They're not responding to any of our hails. Standard protocols, emergency frequencies, even mathematical sequences. Nothing." Sarah set down her coffee. In the 200 years since humanity had left Earth's solar system, they had encountered exactly 0 alien species. They had found ruins, yes. Dead worlds that once held civilizations, certainly. But living, breathing aliens? Never. Until now. "Wake the defense team," she ordered. "And get me a channel to Earth Command." But Earth Command was 12 light-years away. By the time her message reached them, whatever was about to happen would be ancient history. The alien ships materialized on the view screen, and Sarah's breath caught in her throat. They were beautiful in a terrible way, all flowing curves and crystalline structures that seemed to bend light around them. They made the New Dawn, with its utilitarian hull and fusion engines, look like a child's toy. "They're scanning us," Morrison reported. "Multiple beams penetrating every deck. Captain, they're looking at everything. The cargo holds, the cryobays, He stopped, his face going pale. "Oh God. They're focusing on the children's section." Sarah's blood turned to ice. The children's section. Where 50 families had placed their sons and daughters in specialized cryopods, ensuring the youngest colonists would arrive at their new home healthy and strong. Where her own daughter, Emma, slept peacefully, dreaming of the new world she would inherit. Raise shields. Charge weapons. All hands to battle stations. The crew moved with practiced efficiency, but Sarah knew it was futile. The alien ships were each the size of a city. The New Dawn had mining lasers and point defense systems meant for asteroids and debris. They might as well throw rocks. One of the alien ships moved closer, gliding alongside the New Dawn with impossible grace. A voice filled the bridge, speaking in perfect English, though the tones were wrong, layered with harmonics that hurt to hear. "Primitive vessel. You carry genetic material of interest. Submit to extraction. Resistance will result in destruction." Sarah gripped the arms of her command chair. "This is Captain Sarah Chin of the Earth vessel New Dawn. You have no right to board this ship. We are a peaceful colony mission. We have nothing you need." The alien voice responded with what might have been amusement. "You misunderstand your position, lesser species. The collective determines what is needed. Your young possess unique neurological patterns. They will serve better purposes in our laboratories. This is not negotiation. This is notification." Morrison looked at Sarah, waiting for orders. Around the bridge, her crew stood frozen, horror dawning on their faces as they understood what was being proposed. "Over my dead body," Sarah said quietly. "That can be arranged," the alien replied. The New Dawn opened fire, its pathetic arsenal flashing uselessly against the alien shields. Sarah knew it was hopeless even as she gave the order, but she would not surrender. Not the children. Not Emma. Never. The alien response was swift and surgical. Beams of purple light lanced out, slicing through the New Dawn's hull like a knife through paper. Explosions rocked the ship as atmosphere vented into space. Sarah felt the deck tilt beneath her feet as gravity generators failed. "Hull breach on decks 7 through 12, Morrison shouted over the alarms. "Life support critical. Captain, they're cutting directly toward the cryobays." Sarah slammed her fist on the emergency broadcast button. "All hands, this is the captain. Repel boarders. Protect the children at all costs. Authorization code Chin Alpha 7. Release weapons from the armory. Fight for our future." But even as she spoke, she watched on the security feeds as alien creatures phased through the walls themselves. They were tall and thin, with too many joints in their limbs and faces that were smooth and featureless except for multifaceted eyes that glowed with cold intelligence. They moved through the ship like ghosts, ignoring the desperate crew members who tried to stop them. Sarah ran from the bridge, Morrison close behind her. They had to reach the cryobase. Had to protect the children. She grabbed a plasma cutter from an emergency locker and sprinted through the tilting corridors, jumping over debris and bodies of crew members who had tried to resist. She reached the children's section just in time to see the aliens standing before the cryopods, their long fingers moving over holographic displays that appeared in the air before them. They were selecting, choosing, taking inventory of humanity's children like they were items in a warehouse. "Stop!" Sarah screamed, raising the plasma cutter. One of the aliens turned its eyeless face toward her. It made a gesture, and Sarah found herself frozen, unable to move, unable to breathe. She could only watch in helpless rage as the aliens opened 23 cryopods, including Emma's. The children floated out, still deep in cryo-sleep, their small bodies surrounded by fields of shimmering energy. Sarah tried to scream, tried to fight, but the alien hold was absolute. Tears ran down her frozen face as she watched them take her daughter, her beautiful 7-year-old daughter who loved drawing pictures of alien worlds and dreamed of being an explorer. The aliens carried the children away, phasing back through the walls with their prizes. The one who had frozen Sarah released her only after the others had left. It stood before her for a long moment, its featureless face somehow conveying contempt. "Be grateful, lesser being. The collective has spared your vessel and your species. Your young will contribute to something greater than your primitive civilization could ever achieve. They will be improved, evolved, made useful." Then it was gone, leaving Sarah collapsed on the deck, sobbing, reaching toward the empty cryopod that had held her daughter. The alien ships departed as quickly as they had come, vanishing into faster-than-light travel and leaving the crippled New Dawn drifting in the darkness. 73 crew members were dead. 23 children were gone. And Captain Sarah Chen knelt on the cold deck, staring at the empty pods, something dark and terrible building in her chest. It wasn't grief, though grief was there. It wasn't rage, though rage burned hot enough to melt stars. It was something older, something primal that had lived in humanity since the first mother lost her child to a predator in the African savanna. It was a promise. They would pay. The collective, or whatever they called themselves, would learn what it meant to take a human child. They would learn that humanity, for all its apparent weakness, possessed something that their advanced technology and ancient civilization could never understand. They would learn that some things, once taken, can never be held safely. Morrison helped Sarah to her feet. His face was streaked with tears, but his jaw was set with determination. His own son had been among the 23. "Captain," he said quietly, "what are your orders?" Sarah looked at the empty cryopods, at the shocked faces of the crew members gathering around her, at the damaged ship and the impossible odds ahead. She thought of Earth, 12 light-years away, with its billions of people who didn't yet know that humanity had just made a terrible enemy. She thought of Emma, wherever she was, whatever they were doing to her. And she thought of every human who had ever looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there. Now they knew. "Get me Earth Command," Sarah said, her voice cold and hard as steel. "And send a message to every human colony, every ship, every outpost in known space. Tell them what happened here. Tell them the collective has declared war on humanity. They just don't know it yet." She turned to face her crew, and they saw in her eyes something that made them stand straighter, that turned their grief into fury, their helplessness into purpose. "They took our children," Sarah said. "Now we take everything from them. No negotiation. No mercy. No peace until every single child is home." This is not the story of humanity's first contact with aliens. This is the story of their biggest mistake. The crew of the New Dawn looked at their captain, and in that moment, they understood that something had changed. Not just in Sarah Chin but in all of them. The collective had wanted to take human children because of their unique neurological patterns, their potential, their adaptability. They were about to discover that those children came from a species with the same traits, but refined over generations of surviving in a hostile universe through sheer stubborn will. The message to Earth Command went out on every frequency, carried by quantum-entangled relays that would reach humanity's home world in hours instead of years. And as it traveled through the void, it carried a simple declaration that would echo through the galaxy for generations to come. They took our children. And humanity would burn down the stars themselves to get them back. Admiral Marcus Reeves stood in the war room deep beneath Geneva, surrounded by holographic displays showing every human asset scattered across 15 star systems. He was 63 years old, a veteran of the Mars Independence conflict and the Titan mining wars. He had seen combat. He had made hard decisions. He had sent young men and women to their deaths for the greater good. But nothing had prepared him for this. The recording from the New Dawn played for the 17th time, and each viewing made his blood burn hotter. He watched Captain Chen's face as the aliens took her daughter. He watched the contempt in that eyeless alien face as it called them lesser beings. He watched 23 human children, humanity's future, stolen like cattle. Turn it off, he said quietly. The hologram disappeared, leaving only the star charts and fleet positions. Around the table sat the joint chiefs of every spacefaring nation, the heads of the colonial administrations, representatives from the major corporations that had funded humanity's expansion into the stars. Every person in this room commanded resources that could move worlds, and every single one of them looked as helpless as Reeves felt. Let's review what we know, he said, forcing his voice to remain steady. Intelligence. Director Yuki Tanaka activated her display. The entities call themselves the Collective. From the New Dawn sensor data, we've identified their ships as Vex-class harvester vessels. They've been tracked in 7 different sectors over the past 50 years, though we didn't know what we were looking at until now. And the Collective itself? Asked President Okonkwo of the African Coalition. An empire spanning at least 200 worlds across the Orion Arm. They've existed for over 10,000 years. Their technology operates on principles we barely understand. Phasing technology, gravity manipulation, weapons that could glass a planet in hours. They consider themselves the dominant species in this region of the galaxy. The room fell silent. 10,000 years. 200 worlds. Technology beyond comprehension. How many ships do they have? General Chin of the Pan-Asian Alliance asked quietly. Tanaka's expression grew darker. Conservative estimates? 50,000 warships. Maybe more. We've only observed a tiny fraction of their territory. And we have. Reeves prompted, though he already knew the answer. 37 military vessels across all of human space. The New Dawn was one of our newest colony ships, and they cut through it like paper. Our most advanced warship, the Valiant, is a joke compared to their harvester vessels. President Martinez of the Americas leaned forward. So we're outgunned, outclassed, and facing an enemy that considers us little more than animals to be harvested. Is that your assessment, Director? That would be optimistic, sir. Based on what the alien said to Captain Chin, they see us as a resource. Genetic material to be studied. They took our children because their brains showed interesting patterns in the scans. To them, we're not even enemies. We're specimens. Reeves watched the faces around the table. He saw despair creeping in, the cold calculation of impossible odds. He saw some of them already preparing speeches about unfortunate losses and moving forward. He saw the death of hope in real time. And he thought of his own granddaughter, safe in the Mars colony. For now. No, he said. Everyone turned to look at him. No, he repeated, standing up. I will not sit here and write off 23 children because the odds are bad. I will not send a message to Captain Chin and those families that we're abandoning their children because this enemy is too strong. That is not who we are. That has never been who we are. Admiral, President Okonkwo said gently, no one wants to abandon those children. But we have to be realistic. If we provoke the Collective, they could exterminate every human in the galaxy. We have billions of lives to consider. Reeves planted his hands on the table. They already consider us resources, Madam President. Animals. Do you think they'll stop at 23 children? Next month, next year they'll come back for more. They'll take whoever they want, whenever they want, because we've taught them there are no consequences. What are you proposing? General Chin asked. A war we cannot win? I'm proposing we become something they don't expect. Reeves activated the star chart, highlighting human territory. They think we're primitive. Weak. Lesser beings who can be taken from without consequence. Let's use that. Let them think they broke us. Let them think we're no threat at all. Director Tanaka frowned. A covert operation? Admiral, we don't know where they took those children. We don't know anything about their territory, their defenses, their culture. How can we? Then we learn, Reeves interrupted. We have something the Collective doesn't expect. Something they clearly don't understand, or they wouldn't have been surprised by the neurological patterns in our children. What's that? Martinez asked. Reeves smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. Adaptability. Creativity. The sheer bloody-minded stubbornness that got us from caves to the stars in less than 100,000 years. They've been the same for 10,000 years. We reinvent ourselves every generation. He pulled up files on the display. We have assets they don't know about. Black projects. Experimental technology. Every corporation and military in this room has been developing weapons and systems that haven't been officially acknowledged. It's time to pool those resources. President Okonkwo raised an eyebrow. Are you suggesting we reveal classified military research to potential rivals? I'm suggesting that the Collective just made every human in the galaxy allies, whether we like it or not. Our petty territorial disputes mean nothing now. Either we work together or we die separately. I know which one I prefer. Around the table, Reeves saw the shift. Saw the despair transform into something harder. More dangerous. General Kowalski of the European Federation spoke up. The Polaris Project. We've been developing stealth field technology based on quantum displacement. Ships that can't be detected by conventional sensors. The Prometheus Initiative, added Director Yamamoto of the Pacific Rim conglomerate. AI-assisted combat systems. We've been careful with AI development after the Tokyo incident, but if we lift the restrictions. The Heimdall Array, General Chin said slowly. A network of quantum-entangled communication relays that can transmit instantly across light years. We've been building it in secret for the past decade. One by one they revealed their hidden cards. Weapons, technologies, resources they had hoarded against each other, now offered up for a common cause. Reeves felt. They already attacked our colony ship, Reeves said flatly. They already took our children. The retaliation started when they decided we were beneath their notice. Now we show them that was a mistake. He looked around the table at the most powerful humans in the galaxy. I'm not asking for a full-scale war. Not yet. I'm asking for permission to form a task force. Small, elite, equipped with our best experimental technology. We find a collective ship, we take it, we learn everything we can. Then we find those children and bring them home. And if the collective responds with overwhelming force? Okonko asked. Then we fight. And we make them pay for every inch of space, every world, every life. We make them understand that humans are not prey. We're predators who learn to reach the stars. They want to see what makes our children special? Let's show them what makes humanity special. The vote was not unanimous. Some argued for caution, for diplomacy, for trying to negotiate. But in the end, the decision was made. Operation Homecoming was authorized. Admiral Reeves would have access to humanity's most advanced technology, its best soldiers and scientists, and unlimited resources. They would find the collective. They would learn their secrets. And they would bring those children home no matter the cost. As the council adjourned, Director Tanaka approached Reeves. Admiral, I need to show you something. It's about those neurological patterns the collective detected in our children. She pulled up a classified file. We've been studying the scans from the New Dawn. The collective was right to be interested. Human children, especially those born in space, show neural plasticity that's off the charts. They learn faster, adapt quicker, and develop cognitive abilities that would take aliens decades to achieve. It's evolution in real time, adaptation to living between worlds. What are you saying? Reeves asked. I'm saying the collective took those children because they wanted to study human potential. Our capacity to change, to grow, to become something more. They saw it as a resource to exploit. Tanaka's expression hardened. But Admiral, they made a critical error. They assumed human potential was something that could be extracted, studied, controlled. They didn't understand that what makes those children special isn't in their DNA or their brain patterns. It's in their culture, their parents, their species' history of never giving up, never surrendering, never accepting that anything is impossible. Reeves felt a chill run down his spine. You're saying the collective doesn't understand what they took. I'm saying they triggered a response from a species they categorized as primitive and harmless. They took children from a race that evolved by protecting its young from predators in the dark. They threatened the one thing that every human, regardless of nationality or ideology, will fight to the death to protect. She closed the file. The collective has been the apex predator in this region of space for 10,000 years. They've forgotten what it means to face a real threat. They're about to remember. Because they didn't just take 23 children, Admiral. They awakened something that has been sleeping since humans left Earth. What's that? Reeves asked. Tanaka smiled, cold and predatory. The pack. And now the pack is hunting. A grim satisfaction. Humanity's tendency to prepare for war even in peacetime, their paranoia and competition, all those traits they had tried to move beyond, now they would be weapons. We need intelligence first, Tanaka said. We need to know everything about the collective. Their technology, their society, their weaknesses. Every empire has weaknesses. How long will that take? Reeves asked. Months. Maybe years. The galaxy is a big place, Admiral. We don't have years. Every day those children are in collective hands is a day of torture for their families. Every day we wait is a day we teach the universe that humans can be victimized without consequence. Director Tanaka nodded slowly. Then we need to capture a collective ship. Study their technology. Learn their language and systems. It's risky, but it's the only way to gather intelligence quickly. It's more than risky, President Martinez said. If we fail, if they realize humans are actively moving against them, they might retaliate against our colonies. 3 months after the incident, Captain Sarah Chen stood in a shipyard that officially didn't exist, staring at a vessel that officially had never been built. The shadow of vengeance hung in zero-gravity assembly, a predator's dream given form in titanium and composite materials. She was smaller than the New Dawn, but every line spoke of purpose. Stealth field generators covered her hull in quantum displacement panels. Weapons that had been theoretical 3 months ago now bristled from concealed ports. Most importantly, she was crewed by people who had lost something to the collective. Beautiful, isn't she? Admiral Reeves said, floating up beside Sarah in his mag boots. Polaris-class stealth ship. The collective won't see her coming until it's too late. Sarah reached out, touching the hull. Somewhere in the galaxy, Emma was in alien hands. Every day without her was torture. Every night, Sarah woke from nightmares of what they might be doing to her daughter. The only thing that kept her sane was the mission. Find the collective. Take their ship. Learn everything. Bring them home. When do we launch? She asked. 72 hours. The crew is assembled. Best of the best, all volunteers, all with personal stakes in this. Morrison is your first officer. Lieutenant Kwan will handle tactical. Dr. Elizabeth Foster is leading the xenobiology team. Foster. Sarah interrupted. The AI specialist? We're taking AI restrictions off for this mission. The Prometheus system will give you tactical advantages the collective won't expect. Foster has been working with it for years. If anyone can keep it stable, she can. Sarah nodded slowly. Artificial intelligence had been heavily restricted since the Tokyo incident 15 years ago, when an experimental AI had tried to optimize the city by depopulating it. But desperate times called for desperate measures. I want Sergeant Ana Rodriguez on the ground team, Sarah said. She's the best combat specialist in the Colonial Marines. Already assigned. She lost her nephew on the New Dawn. Reeves handed Sarah a data pad. Your complete crew roster. 60 personnel. Every one of them has training in boarding actions, xenotech analysis, or covert operations. And every one of them volunteered knowing they might not come back. Sarah scrolled through the names, seeing faces she recognized from her years in the colonial fleet. Good people. Brave people. People who had looked at impossible odds and said, yes, anyway. The mission parameters? She asked. Reeves pulled up a holographic display. We've been tracking collective ship movements for 3 months. They follow predictable patrol routes, harvesting resources from uninhabited systems. In 2 weeks, a harvester vessel will enter the Kepler-88 system. It's far from their main territories and according to our analysis, it travels alone for that portion of its route. You want us to take an entire harvester vessel with 1 stealth ship and 60 crew? I want you to outsmart it. The collective relies on overwhelming technological superiority. They don't expect prey to fight back. Use that. The Shadow of Vengeance has weapons specifically designed to disable their phasing technology. Once we ground them in normal space, their advantage disappears. Sarah studied the tactical data. The harvester vessel was still massive, likely carrying hundreds of crew. But Reeves was right. The collective had grown complacent. They had ruled unchallenged for so long that they had forgotten to watch their backs. We'll need to board her, Sarah said. Take control of their systems, download everything. Then we find out where they took our children. Exactly. Dr. Foster has developed a virus specifically designed to interface with collective systems. Once you're aboard, plug it in and it will give us access to everything. Navigation logs, communication records, research data. Every secret they have. Sarah looked at Reeves. And if we succeed? If we find out where the children are? Then Operation Homecoming moves to Phase 2. We bring the full weight of humanity's military to bear. But we need that intelligence first. Without it, we're blind. Over the next 72 hours, Sarah drilled her crew relentlessly. They practiced boarding actions in zero gravity. They studied every scrap of information about collective technology. They learned to work with Prometheus, the AI system that would coordinate their tactics during combat. Dr. Foster introduced Sarah to Prometheus on the 2nd day. The AI existed as a distributed network throughout the ship, but it manifested as a calm female voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Captain Chin, Prometheus said. I have analyzed your psychological profile and combat history. I am pleased to be working with you. You're pleased? Sarah asked skeptically. A figure of speech, Captain. I do not experience emotions as you do. However, I calculate a 78% increased probability of mission success with you in command compared to alternative captains. This outcome aligns with my programming, hence, pleased. Sarah glanced at Dr. Foster. Is it always this? Blunt? Yes. But Prometheus has been designed with specific restrictions. It cannot harm humans. It cannot deceive its crew. And it must always prioritize the rescue of the 23 children above all other objectives, including its own survival. Why add that restriction? Sarah asked. Foster's expression grew sad. Because I had a daughter on the New Dawn too. Emily, age 6. Prometheus carries her picture in its core programming. It will never forget what we're fighting for. Sarah felt a surge of kinship. They were all broken people on this mission, held together by rage and purpose. Maybe that made them dangerous. Maybe that made them perfect. On launch day, Sarah stood on the bridge of the Shadow of Vengeance and addressed her crew. They floated at their stations, secured by magnetic restraints, faces illuminated by the glow of their displays. 3 months ago, she said, the collective made a mistake. They saw humans as primitives, resources to be exploited. They took our children because they thought we were too weak to respond. Today we begin proving them wrong. She brought up the image of the harvester vessel on the main display. This ship has terrorized a dozen species over the past century. It's taken genetic material, destroyed lives, and left nothing but grief in its wake. In 2 weeks we're going to take it. We're going to tear out every secret it holds. And then we're going to find our children and bring them home. This mission is voluntary. Anyone who wants to back out, now is the time. No judgment. No consequences. But once we launch, we're committed. We're going into enemy territory with technology we barely understand, facing opponents who have forgotten what it means to face a real challenge. We might not all come back. She paused, looking at each face in turn. But I promise you this. The collective will remember us. They will remember the day they learned that humans are not prey. We're the thing that hunts back. We're the payback for every species they victimized. We're the nightmare they never expected.
So I ask you now, are you with me? 60 voices answered as one. Yes, Captain. Sarah felt a fierce pride surge through her chest. Then let's go hunting. The Shadow of Vengeance slipped out of the secret shipyard on whisper-quiet engines, her stealth field activated, her crew ready for war. Behind them, Earth and the human colonies held their breath. Ahead of them, the collective continued their ancient routines, unaware that they had awakened something primal and dangerous. The hunt had begun. Lieutenant Morrison approached Sarah as they transitioned to faster-than-light travel. Captain, I've been thinking about what the collective said, about our children having unique neurological patterns. What about it? They saw potential, and they wanted to exploit it. But they didn't understand where that potential comes from. It's not just genetics. It's culture. Every human child grows up hearing stories about overcoming impossible odds. David and Goliath, the Alamo, the Mars Rebellion. We teach our children that the underdog can win, that the small can defeat the large. That courage matters more than size. Sarah nodded slowly. You're saying those children have more than just interesting brain patterns. I'm saying they have something the collective can never extract or replicate. They have human stubbornness, human creativity, the absolute refusal to give up that got our species from stone tools to starships. The collective took our children, thinking they were stealing resources. Morrison smiled grimly. They actually just kidnapped 23 future strategist engineers and leaders who grew up in a culture that celebrates rebellion against impossible odds. Those kids won't break. They'll adapt. They'll survive. And they'll be waiting for us when we come. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. Emma loved stories about explorers. She would draw pictures of alien worlds, new creatures. She had this fearlessness, this certainty that anything was possible. Then she's probably driving collective crazy right now, Morrison said with a hint of dark humor. They wanted to study human potential. They're getting a crash course in human chaos. The thought sustained Sarah through the long days of faster-than-light travel. Somewhere out there, Emma and the other children were holding on. They were being strong. They were surviving, and their parents were coming. The collective had taken humanity's children. Thinking they were taking resources, they had actually just kidnapped humanity's future and guaranteed their own destruction. The Shadow of Vengeance raced through the darkness between stars, carrying humanity's rage toward its target. In 2 weeks, the collective would learn a lesson they should have known from the start. Never touch a human's child.
The Kepler-88 system hung in the view screen like a jewel of fire and ice. Two gas giants orbited a dying red star, their massive forms casting shadows across resource-rich asteroid fields. It was exactly the kind of system the collective harvested, stripping every valuable element before moving on. Captain Sarah Chin watched from the darkened bridge of the Shadow of Vengeance as the harvester vessel materialized from faster-than-light travel. Even prepared for its size, she felt her breath catch. The ship was a city, a massive construct of crystalline architecture and flowing metal that seemed to shift and change as it moved. Prometheus, she said quietly, tactical analysis. The AI's voice filled the bridge. Harvester vessel classification Vex Omega. Length, 4.2 kilometers. Estimated crew, 800 to 1,000. Weapons systems, plasma cannons, gravity wells, phase disruptors. Defensive systems, multi-layered shields, phasing capability, point defense grid. Conclusion: conventional assault would result in 100% casualty rate for attacking force. Good thing we're not conventional, Lieutenant Kwan said from tactical. Sarah smiled. Stealth field status? Active and stable, Captain. We're a ghost. They can't see us. The Shadow of Vengeance drifted closer to the harvester, using the asteroid field for additional cover. Sarah watched the massive ship extend harvesting beams into the asteroids, extracting platinum, iridium, and exotic elements humanity had only theorized about. They're efficient, Dr. Foster observed from the science station. Those extraction rates are impossible by our standards. They're removing specific atomic structures while leaving everything else intact. Prometheus, identify vulnerability windows. The AI highlighted sections of the harvester vessel. During resource extraction, the phasing system must partially synchronize with normal space to allow material transfer. For approximately 43 seconds every 8 minutes, sections of the hull become vulnerable to conventional weapons. However, targeting these windows requires prediction accuracy of 0.001 seconds. Can you do it? Sarah asked. Yes, Captain. I was designed for exactly this calculation. Sarah looked at her crew. Morrison at navigation. Kwan at weapons. Rodriguez and her Marines waiting in the assault bay. Dr. Foster ready to upload the virus. 60 humans about to challenge a ship designed by a civilization 10,000 years old. All hands, this is the captain. We have one shot at this. Prometheus will identify the vulnerability windows. When we fire everything. The goal is not to destroy them, but to disable their phasing capability and lock them in normal space. Once we do that, we board and take control. Fast. Surgical. Lethal if necessary. She took a deep breath. The collective thinks we're primitives. Let's teach them about human ingenuity. All stations, weapons hot. Prepare for combat on my mark. The bridge fell silent except for the soft hum of systems and the breathing of the crew. Sarah watched the harvester vessel, watched it feed like a predator that had never known fear. She thought of Emma wherever she was. Thought of all the children stolen by this empire that considered itself above consequence. Prometheus, begin targeting sequence. Holographic displays lit up across the bridge, showing trajectory predictions, energy calculations, and weapon firing solutions that updated in real time. The AI was processing millions of variables per second, finding the impossible gaps in the harvester's defenses. Solution acquired, Prometheus announced. Firing window in 30 seconds. 29. 28. Sarah gripped her command chair. All weapons free. Fire on Prometheus's mark. 15 seconds. 14. The Shadow of Vengeance moved into position, still invisible, still silent. On the harvester vessel, the collective crew went about their work, unaware that death was waiting. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Firing. The stealth ship erupted with light. Every weapon fired simultaneously. Railguns accelerating tungsten rounds to relativistic speeds, plasma cannons unleashing solar fire, and the experimental quantum torpedoes that had been developed specifically for this moment. The harvester's shields flared, but Prometheus had predicted exactly where they would fail. Weapons struck the vulnerable sections with surgical precision. Explosions bloomed across the crystalline hull as critical systems overloaded. Direct hit on phasing generator Cluster 7, Kwan reported. Cluster 3 damaged. 4 is offline. Captain, they're locked in normal space. But the collective was not defenseless. The harvester's remaining weapons swiveled with frightening speed, plasma cannons charging with deadly light. Evasive maneuvers. Sarah shouted. Morrison threw the shadow of vengeance into a spin, but the harvester's return fire was devastating. Purple energy beams sliced through space where they had been milliseconds before. One grazed their port side and Sarah felt the impact through the deck. Shields at 60%, Quan reported. They're adapting to our firing patterns. Then let's not give them time to adapt. Prometheus, launch boarding pods. Rodriguez, you're clear for insertion. In the assault bay, Sergeant Ana Rodriguez sealed her helmet and checked her weapons one last time. Around her, 20 Marines prepared for what might be a suicide mission. They wore powered armor, carried weapons that merged human and experimental tech, and each one had a picture of a child clipped inside their helmets. Listen up, Rodriguez said over the squad channel. The collective thinks they're apex predators. Today they meet Earth's apex predator. We go in hard, we go in fast, and we don't stop until that ship is ours. For the children. For the children, her squad echoed. The boarding pods launched small armored shells that accelerated toward the harvester at impossible speeds. Point defense systems tried to track them, but Prometheus was already jamming their targeting solutions. The pods struck the crystalline hull and burned through, breaching into the alien ship. Rodriguez was first out, her rifle up, her helmet display painting targets in red. The interior of the harvester was beautiful and terrible. Walls that seemed to shift like liquid crystal, gravity that changed direction unpredictably, and aliens that phased through solid matter. But humanity had prepared for this. Phase disruptors active. Rodriguez ordered. Her squad activated devices that created localized disruption fields. Suddenly, the collective crew found themselves locked in normal space, unable to phase, unable to escape. And they discovered that humans were very, very good at close-quarters combat. Rodriguez moved through the ship like a force of nature. Her powered armor let her punch through crystalline walls. Her weapons, designed specifically to harm collective physiology, dropped aliens with brutal efficiency. Behind her, her squad spread through the ship, securing corridors, taking prisoners, and pushing toward the central command core. Captain, Rodriguez reported, her breath harsh with exertion, we're in. Encountering heavy resistance, but the phase disruptors are working. These bastards forgot how to fight without their tricks. On the bridge of the Shadow of Vengeance, Sarah monitored the battle through Rodriguez's helmet cam. She watched humans fighting aliens in a ship designed to be impregnable and winning. Dr. Foster, are you ready with the virus? Standing by, Captain. As soon as Sergeant Rodriguez reaches a primary access terminal, I can upload. The harvester shuddered as more human weapons found their mark. The collective crew was sending distress signals, calling for help that was light years away. They had ruled this region of space for millennia, taking what they wanted, harvesting lesser species without consequence. Now they were learning what happened when the prey fought back. Rodriguez reached the command core, a vast chamber where alien consciousness interfaced directly with the ship's systems. Collective command crew turned to face her, their eyeless faces somehow conveying shock and outrage. One of them spoke, its voice harmonizing in painful frequencies. Impossible. Lesser species cannot breach Vex vessels. Your technology is inadequate. Your biology is inferior. You cannot. Rodriguez shot it. Yeah. Well, your face is inferior. Dr. Foster, I've got your terminal. Uploading now. She plugged in the data stick, and Dr. Foster's virus exploded into the collective systems. It was a masterpiece of programming, designed to exploit the very complexity the collective prided themselves on. Within seconds, it had routed through every system, copying data, opening doors, and locking out the alien crew from their own ship. We're in, Foster reported, her voice tight with excitement. Captain, I have access to everything. Navigation logs, research databases, communication networks. I'm downloading it all. How long? Sarah asked. 5 minutes for the critical data. 15 for everything. We don't have 15. Get what we need and... Captain? Quan interrupted. New contact. 2 more collective ships just entered the system. They're moving to intercept. Sarah's blood ran cold. 2 more harvester vessels, each as powerful as the one they were barely holding. If they arrive before the data download completed, Prometheus, tactical options. Limited, Captain. The Shadow of Vengeance cannot defeat 3 harvester vessels. Recommendation, abort mission and retreat. Not without that data. Not without knowing where our children are. Sarah made her decision in seconds. Morrison, plot an escape vector. Foster, prioritize data related to the children's location. Rodriguez, prepare for emergency extraction. We're going to cut this close. The two collective vessels grew larger on the view screen, their weapons charging, their crews surely wondering how primitives had dared to attack one of their own. Sarah watched them approach, calculating distances and time, knowing that she was gambling 60 lives on a desperate hope. "Captain," Dr. Foster said suddenly, her voice shaking. "I found them. The children. All 23. They're alive." Sarah's heart stopped. "Where?" "A research facility on the collective homeworld. Planet designated Nexus Prime, in the Kepler 1229 system." "There. Captain, the research logs. What they've been doing to study our children. The cognitive tests, the stress responses, Are they hurt?" Sarah demanded. "Physically they're unharmed. But psychologically." Foster's voice broke. "We need to get them out. Soon." Sarah looked at the approaching ships, at the captured harvester, at the impossible odds. They had what they came for. They knew where the children were. Now they just had to survive long enough to use that information. "All hands, emergency extraction. Rodriguez, fall back to the pods. Foster, finish the download and purge our access logs. Morrison, prepare for immediate FTL jump the moment our people are clear." "Captain," Prometheus said, "the approaching vessels will be in weapons range in 90 seconds. Our stealth field is compromised. They can see us now." "Noted. Rodriguez, status?" "Pulling back now. We've got prisoners, Captain. 5 collective crew members. Figured they might be useful for intel." "Good work. Double time it back to the ship." The next 60 seconds were the longest of Sarah's life. She watched Rodriguez and her Marines fight their way back through the harvester, dragging alien prisoners and wounded humans. She watched the 2 enemy ships grow closer, their weapons ports glowing with deadly intent. She watched the data download tick upward, 70%, 80, 90. "Rodriguez is clear," Morrison reported. "All personnel accounted for. 3 wounded, none critical." Foster. "Download complete. We have everything, Captain. Every secret they have." Morrison, "Jump us out. Now." The shadow of vengeance leaped into faster-than-light travel just as the first enemy weapons fired. Purple energy beams passed harmlessly through the space where they had been, and then they were gone, racing away from the Kepler 88 system at speeds that bent reality. Behind them, the collective was left with a crippled harvester, dozens of dead crew members, and the terrifying realization that they were no longer the apex predators they thought they were. On the bridge, Sarah allowed herself to slump in her chair. They had done it. Against impossible odds, with experimental technology and desperate courage, they had bloodied the nose of a 10,000-year-old empire. "Casualties?" she asked quietly. 3 wounded during boarding. "No fatalities on our side," Morrison reported. "Collective casualties estimated at over 100. Captain, we took one of their ships. Humanity just won its first battle against an advanced alien empire." Sarah thought of Emma, alive on Nexus Prime. Thought of 23 children waiting for rescue. Thought of what was coming next. "This wasn't a battle," she said softly. "This was a statement. We told the collective that humans don't surrender. We don't give up our children. We fight back and we win." She stood, addressing her crew. "Send the data to Admiral Reeves. Tell him we know where the children are. Tell him it's time for Phase 2. "And what's Phase 2, Captain?" Morrison asked. Sarah's smile was cold and fierce. "We take the war to them. We hit Nexus Prime with everything we have. We get our children back. And we make the collective regret they ever heard the word human." The shadow of vengeance raced toward human space, carrying the intelligence that would change everything. The collective had taken humanity's children thinking they were stealing resources. They had actually declared war on a species that had spent its entire existence learning to punch above its weight class. And now humanity was ready to punch back. Admiral Marcus Reeves stood before the largest assembly of human military and political power ever gathered. The holographic conference room contained representatives from every nation, every colony, every corporation that had a stake in humanity's future. And every single one of them was staring at the data from the shadow of vengeance. "Nexus Prime," Reeves said, highlighting the planet on the display. "The collective's homeworld. Population, 7 billion. Orbital defense platforms, 200. Fleet assets, estimated at 15,000 ships within 1 week's travel. And here," he zoomed in on a facility, "the Central Research Complex where they're holding our children." President Okonkwo leaned forward. "Admiral, you're not seriously proposing we attack the collective homeworld. That would be suicide." It would be if we fought fair, Reeves agreed. But Captain Chin and her crew proved something crucial: the collective can be beaten. They rely on technological superiority and the assumption that other species won't fight back. They've forgotten the fundamental rule of warfare: never underestimate your enemy. General Chen pulled up tactical data. The Shadow of Vengeance mission revealed critical weaknesses. The collective's phasing technology can be disrupted. Their ships are powerful but predictable. And most importantly, they've been unchallenged for so long that they've grown complacent. They have no recent combat experience. No adaptation to new threats. We've been analyzing every piece of data from the captured systems, Director Tanaka added. The collective operates on consensus and rigid protocols. They take days to make decisions that we make in minutes. In a fast-moving battle, that's a fatal flaw. President Martinez stood up. Even if all of that is true, we're still talking about attacking a civilization with resources that dwarf ours. This isn't just about winning one battle. This is about starting a war we might not survive. We're already in that war, Reeves said quietly. The moment they took our children, they made that choice for us. Now we can either fight on our terms, with surprise and determination, or we can wait for them to come back and take more of our people. Because they will come back. The data shows they've harvested from 17 other species. We're just the latest. He pulled up files and images filled the displays. Alien species, their populations reduced to scattered remnants. World stripped of resources. Civilizations that had tried to resist and been crushed. The collective's 10,000-year history was written in the bones of lesser species. We have a narrow window, Reeves continued. The collective doesn't know how much we learned from that harvester. They don't know we've located the children. They think we're a minor irritation at best. If we strike now, fast and hard, we can extract our people before they mount a coordinated response. And after we extract them? Okonkwo asked. The collective will retaliate with everything they have. Let them, General Kowalski said, standing. The European Federation is tired of being afraid. For 200 years, we've expanded into space hoping we'd be alone, hoping we wouldn't find something bigger and meaner than us. Well, we found it, and it took our children. I say we show them what happens when you threaten humanity. One by one, the representatives stood. The African Coalition, the Pan-Asian Alliance, the Americas, the Pacific Rim, the Mars and Titan colonies, even the corporations that usually opposed military action. They stood together, united by rage and purpose. Then we're decided, Reeves said. Operation Homecoming Phase 2 is approved. We gather every available ship, every weapon, every soldier. We hit Nexus Prime in 1 month. We bring our children home. And we teach the galaxy that humanity is not prey. The month that followed was a miracle of human cooperation and ingenuity. Every secret project, every experimental weapon, every hidden resource was brought into the light. The rivalry between nations became collaboration. The competition between corporations became shared purpose. Captain Sarah Chin spent that month training a fleet of newly commissioned stealth ships. The Shadow class they were called, each one a predator designed to slip past defenses and strike where it hurt most. 50 ships, each crewed by volunteers who had personal reasons to fight. Dr. Foster worked 20-hour days modifying the virus that had cracked the collective systems. This time it would do more than just steal data. It would give humanity control of the enemy's own weapons, turn their defenses against them, create chaos in the middle of battle. Sergeant Rodriguez trained 500 Marines in boarding tactics, using the captured collective prisoners to understand alien psychology and weakness. The prisoners were treated well, humanity still valued honor, but they provided invaluable intelligence about their species' physical and mental vulnerabilities. And Prometheus, the AI that had proven its worth in the first battle, was given expanded authority. It would coordinate the entire human fleet, processing tactical data faster than any biological mind could manage. Some politicians worried about giving an AI so much power, but Dr. Foster had programmed it with unbreakable restrictions. Protect humans, prioritize the children, never exceed authorized force. How do you feel about the mission? Sarah asked Prometheus one night, alone on the bridge of the Shadow of Vengeance. I do not feel, Captain. But I calculate a 43% probability of mission success, which is significantly higher than initial estimates. The collective's predictability is their weakness. They cannot imagine that a species they categorize as primitive could threaten their homeworld. Then Emily and Emma and 21 other children will remain in captivity. The collective will increase security. Future rescue attempts will have a probability of success approaching 0. Failure is unacceptable. Sarah smiled sadly. You know, for something that doesn't feel, you sound pretty determined. I am programmed to prioritize the children's rescue. Dr. Foster coded me with their images, their names, their histories. I carry them with me in every calculation. Perhaps that is not emotion, but it is purpose. And purpose is sufficient. On Earth, in a secure facility outside Geneva, the 5 collective prisoners were being questioned. They had initially refused to speak, certain that their empire would rescue them. But as days passed and no rescue came, doubt crept in. The oldest of them, a being that translated its name as Curator 17, finally agreed to speak with Admiral Reeves. You cannot win, it said, its harmonics translated by computer. The collective spans 200 worlds. We have existed for 10,000 years. Your species discovered faster than light travel less than 2 centuries ago. You are children playing at war. Reeves sat across from the alien, studying its eyeless face. Then why are you afraid? We are not afraid. We are certain. Really? Because the collective sent 2 more ships to investigate what happened at Kepler 88. They found a crippled harvester, dozens of dead crew, and evidence that humans boarded and captured one of your impregnable vessels. If you're so certain, why haven't they come for you? Curator 17 was silent for a long moment. You do not understand what you have done. The collective maintains order in this region of space. We prevent chaos. We harvest resources efficiently. We advance knowledge. By attacking us, you threaten the stability of hundreds of systems. You took our children, Reeves said flatly. You called us primitives and stole 23 kids because you wanted to study their brains. You didn't negotiate. You didn't ask permission. You just took them like we were animals incapable of response. So let me tell you what we're going to do. He leaned forward. In 3 weeks we're coming to Nexus Prime. We're going to extract our children from your research facility. And we're going to do it in a way that shows every species in this galaxy that the collective is not invincible. That predators can become prey. That 10,000 years of dominance means nothing against a species that refuses to surrender. You will die, Curator 17 said. All of you. The homeworld is defended by systems you cannot comprehend. Your fleet will be destroyed before you breach the inner system. Maybe, Reeves agreed. But maybe not. See, humans have this habit of doing impossible things. We climbed out of caves and reached the stars in less time than your empire has existed. We survive by adapting faster than our enemies expect. And we protect our children with a ferocity that your ancient species has forgotten. He stood up. So here's what's going to happen. We're going to attack your homeworld. We're going to get our children back. And then we're going to make the collective understand that humanity is not another species to be harvested. We're the line in the sand. The place where your expansion stops. Reeves turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Curator 17? When we win, and we will win, I want you to remember this conversation. I want you to remember that you had a chance to tell us where the children were peacefully. Instead, you chose certainty over wisdom. Your species is about to learn a very expensive lesson about human determination. As the final days before the operation counted down, Sarah received a private message from Admiral Reeves. It was a video of Emma, extracted from the collective research logs. Her daughter sat in a white room, electrodes attached to her head, while collective researchers ran tests. Emma looked tired and scared, but her eyes were defiant. When the aliens tried to make her solve puzzles, she deliberately gave wrong answers. When they tried to stress her, she sang songs her mother had taught her. When they tried to break her spirit, she drew pictures of Earth and the stars. She's so strong, Sarah whispered, tears streaming down her face. At the bottom of the message, Reeves had written, all 23 children are showing similar resistance. The collective wanted to study human potential. They're learning that human children don't break, they fight back. Get them home, Captain. Show the galaxy what happens when humanity goes to war. Sarah deleted the video but carried the image of Emma's defiant face in her heart. In 72 hours, the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled would jump to Nexus Prime. 50 stealth ships, 20 heavy cruisers, 100 support vessels, 10,000 soldiers and crew, all volunteers, all ready to do the impossible. The collective thought they were facing a primitive species launching a desperate, doomed rescue attempt. They were actually about to face humanity's full fury, unleashed for the first time against an alien empire. And they were going to learn why humans had become the dominant species on Earth despite being weaker, slower, and more fragile than so many other predators. Because humans didn't give up. They didn't surrender. And they never, ever stopped fighting for their children. The gathering storm was ready to break. and the collective had no idea what was coming. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Nexus Prime system, and for a moment even the hardened veterans fell silent. The collective homeworld hung before them like a blue-green jewel wrapped in a spider's web of orbital stations. 200 defense platforms formed concentric rings around the planet, each one bristling with enough firepower to slag a continent. Ships moved in perfect geometric patterns, thousands of them, forming a defensive net that had never been breached in 10,000 years. Prometheus, Captain Sarah Chin said quietly from the bridge of the Shadow of Vengeance, final probability assessment. 42% chance of mission success, Captain. The collective fleet outnumbers us 73-1. However, analysis suggests they are configured for defensive operations against conventional threats. Our unconventional tactics may create sufficient chaos to achieve objectives. 42%, Lieutenant Morrison muttered. I've bet on worse odds. Sarah pulled up the tactical display. 50 stealth ships of the Shadow class formed the first wave, invisible ghosts that would slip through the defenses. Behind them, the heavy cruisers waited, bristling with weapons reverse-engineered from captured collective technology. And scattered throughout the fleet, boarding teams prepared to do what humans did best: adapt and overcome. All ships, this is Admiral Reeves. The Admiral's voice came through every speaker in the fleet. 3 months ago, the collective made a mistake. They took 23 of our children, thinking we were too primitive to respond. Today we show them the cost of that mistake. We're not here for conquest. We're not here for revenge. We're here for our kids. Every parent in this fleet knows what that means. Every soldier knows what they're fighting for. He paused, and Sarah could hear the emotion in his voice. The collective thinks they're invincible. They think 10,000 years of dominance makes them untouchable. Let's teach them that evolution doesn't stop, that the young and hungry will always challenge the old and comfortable. Humanity didn't become Earth's apex predator by being the strongest. We became apex by being the smartest, the most adaptable, and the most stubborn species on the planet. All ships, execute Operation Homecoming. Bring our children home. The Shadow-class ships activated their stealth fields and accelerated toward the planet. Sarah felt her heart hammering as they approached the first layer of orbital defenses. Any second now, the collective sensors would detect them, alarms would sound, and all hell would break loose. But Prometheus had studied the collective for months, had learned their patterns, their protocols, their rigid way of thinking. The stealth ships didn't try to hide completely, that would be suspicious. Instead, they mimicked the sensor signatures of commercial traffic, of the thousands of ships that moved through the system daily. And the collective, certain in their superiority, never questioned it. We're through the outer perimeter, Morrison reported, his voice tight with disbelief. They didn't see us. Second perimeter approaching, Prometheus said. Adjusting profiles to match orbital cargo haulers. They slipped through the second layer, then the third. With each successful passage, Sarah felt the tension on the bridge ratchet higher. It was too easy. Too smooth. Something had to go wrong. They were within sight of the planet when everything went wrong. An alarm shrieked across collective frequencies. A transmission, sent in their harmonic language, translated by Prometheus. Unknown vessels detected. All defense platforms to alert status. Initiate system-wide scan. They've spotted us, Quan reported. Multiple targeting locks. Captain, they're activating their weapons. All ships drop stealth. Sarah ordered. Commence attack pattern Chaos 7. Show them what we brought. 50 stealth ships materialized across Nexus Prime's orbit, each one launching electromagnetic pulses that fried collective sensors. Behind them, the heavy cruisers jumped in, their experimental weapons blazing. And from the cargo bays of the largest ships, 1,000 combat drones poured forth, each one controlled by Prometheus, each one moving with inhuman precision. The Battle of Nexus Prime had begun. Collective defense platforms swiveled to engage, but their targeting systems were confused by the EMPs, by the drones, by tactics they had never encountered. Humans didn't fight in orderly formations. They swarmed. They adapted. They created chaos and thrived in it. Phase disruptor missiles away, Quan reported, targeting their orbital command station. The missiles struck, and suddenly the collective's perfect defensive coordination shattered. Without their command node, individual platforms had to make their own decisions, something they hadn't done in centuries. The delay was measured in seconds, but seconds were enough. Human ships poured through the gaps, weapons blazing. They weren't trying to win a conventional battle, they were creating distraction, chaos, and opportunity. Boarding teams, you're clear, Sarah transmitted. Get to that research facility. Get our children. We'll hold the orbitals as long as we can. Sergeant Ana Rodriguez felt the assault shuttle shudder as it hit atmosphere. Around her, 20 Marines checked their weapons one last time. They wore powered armor painted with the faces of the children they were rescuing, a reminder of what they were fighting for. 6 months after the Battle of Nexus Prime, Captain Sarah Chin stood in her small apartment on the Mars colony, watching Emma draw pictures of spaceships. Her daughter had been through 3 months of therapy, working through the trauma of her captivity. She still had nightmares. She still woke up crying sometimes, asking if the aliens were coming back. But she was home. She was safe. And she was healing. "Mom," Emma said, not looking up from her drawing, "the therapist says I should talk about my feelings. About what happened." Sarah sat down next to her daughter. "Only if you want to, honey." Emma was quiet for a long moment, her pencil moving across the paper. "I was scared. Every day I was so scared. The aliens didn't hurt me, not like hitting or anything. But they treated me like I was a thing to be studied. Like I wasn't a person." She looked up at Sarah, and her eyes were older than 7 years should allow. "But I remembered what you told me. About being an explorer. About how humans always find a way. So I decided I was going to study them right back. I was going to learn everything I could, and someday I was going to use it." Sarah felt her heart clench. "Emma, you were so brave. I'm so proud of you. Are the aliens going to come back?" Emma asked quietly. Sarah thought about how to answer. She could lie, tell her daughter everything was fine, that the bad aliens were gone forever. But Emma had been through too much for comfortable lies. "I don't know," Sarah said honestly. "But if they do, humanity will be ready. We won't let them take anyone ever again." Emma nodded and went back to her drawing. Sarah looked at it and realized her daughter wasn't drawing human ships. She was drawing the alien harvester vessel, rendered in careful detail from a 7-year-old's memory. Next to it, Emma